morning, guys. Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
All right, so this is our first ever attempt at the podcast, and I thought it would be a cool intro, first episode to do it with these two. So there may be times in the middle where we have to pause it because I screwed something up or something's not working or Alan yells at me for something, but just bear with us for a little bit in case we screw it up. But the cool part about today is that it's a rare thing to have two real experts in a field together at the same time. And you really are talking about two legends in fitness here. Start with Bob, who for everybody else who doesn't know is my dad. Been training for 50 years. Holds all-time world records in powerlifting in multiple different federations. Is a two-time national champion. And more than the stats, the reason that he's here is the consistency, the drive, the discipline that it took to get there, which a lot of people in fitness don't know what it actually takes. Melvin entered his first bodybuilding competition at 17 and honestly never looked back. And for the past 35 years, he's been one of the top names in bodybuilding. I don't even think I could count how many titles you've won, how many times you've stood on the podium. I mean, how many times I've personally watched, I don't know. And, he's done all the fitness expos, all the guest posings, really, really neat to have him here. And the same thing goes with him. The level of discipline is just incredible. It is on another level. Something that, I could say, oh man, I would love to do that, but I know I don't have that level. That's just a different, incredible thing. And it's important to know before we start asking questions that this, these titles, these stats, they weren't learned through the world of instant gratification. They weren't earned through, impatience. This is one of those things where you envision and you just keep going and keep going and keep going. And we're here to figure out, to learn from these two legends how to achieve that level or a semblance of that level of discipline to help reach your goals. One of the things we know about fitness is that it's so incredibly hard. It never gets easier. And as you progress, it actually gets harder. Goals are harder to hit. Your next aesthetic or your next strength goal, they're harder and harder to hit. And how do you stay motivated? And motivation isn't the thing. It is discipline. So, guys, I'm going to ask you some questions and feel free to elaborate as long as you like. So we're starting with Bob. Beauty before age, Melvin. Sorry. All right. So tell me how you became interested in fitness. This is something I actually don't know as your son. So yeah. How did you start this?
Well, Adam, for me, it really was exposure to sports at a young age. Whether it was watching the Olympics on TV or my mom and dad were really interested in golf. Mom more interested as a spectator. She actually got dad into the game of golf because she watched Arnold Palmer charge from the back of the, of the leaderboard and on to win. And then dad of course played. But so exposure to sports, watching Wide World of Sports on TV, watching the Olympics. I was enamored by the Olympics, watching these athletes compete on a world stage and win. And, like any kid that was interested in sports, thinking about, well, could I ever do that? Could I ever, achieve that type of level? But, and then playing Little League Baseball for a couple of years. The coach had me playing third base because I could throw the ball hard. one of the few young kids that could get it over to first base. Playing in junior golf tournaments. I can remember a field day. This is back in the day, people. We had a field day in elementary school. This was the third grade. And field day was awesome. You got out of your classes. You got to go outside and play. And they would have all these contests. And I discovered that I was pretty good in some of them. I mean, they had the softball throw. I could throw a ball pretty far.
I remember the softball.
So I won the softball throw, in the field day. And then the jumps, they had a long jump contest, and then the sprints. And so I really enjoyed that type of stuff, and discovered early on that, well, I was okay in some of those things. And I caddied for my dad. I started caddying for him when I was 7 years old. He was in the military. At that time, we actually were stationed in Tripoli, Libya. And so here I am, a 7-year-old, caddying for dad. And of course, we're walking the course, but he had he had one of those pull carts, state of the art at the time. So his 7-year-old son could just go right along and pull this cart. And that's how I learned the game. I'm grateful that I learned the game from him. But I'll never forget, the first time he's hitting up to the green. Well, in Libya, the greens were actually rolled sand, hard-packed sand. And they would spread oil on them or something. So he kept saying, well, I'm going to hit the green. I said, well, finally, after a few holes, why do you call it a green, Dad? It's really brown. And he had to explain to me, over here, they don't have grass or whatever. But no, so for me, it really was exposure to sports at an early age, and took a big interest in it.
That's awesome. I didn't know half of that stuff. Melvin, we've been friends for 20 years now. And I actually don't know what got you into fitness originally.
Well, for me, very similar to Bob. A lot of it had to do with exposure to sports as well. I can remember being 12 years old, and same thing, watching the Olympics, being enamored by the athletes, track and field, gymnastics. But I remember I used to not just be enamored by what they were actually doing on the field. I used to look at their bodies, and I'd be like, look at the triceps on this, gymnast. Look at the quads on this sprinter. And that used to make me really, excited, and to think, this may be something that I'd like to get into. So I remember being 12 years old and deciding that I wanted to play football. And, one of the requirements was weightlifting. So that's how I actually first got into weightlifting. And I remember my parents, they were always very supportive on anything I would want to do, especially sports related. And they bought me Joe Weider weight sets, the ones that had the sand in it. But they got it for me, and it was in the basement, and that's where I started at 12 years old. And it was because of football. I wanted to become bigger and stronger for football, and it worked. I could definitely see the results. And, after a while, I noticed that not only was I becoming bigger and stronger, but people started coming up to me and saying, wow, you're getting, your muscles are, really growing. Have you ever done bodybuilding? Have you ever thought about bodybuilding? I didn't even know what bodybuilding was. So then I remember being in a grocery store, and seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger on the cover of a magazine. And I remember just picking up that magazine and going through it, and I think I was actually hooked right there, you know, and never looked back. I said, this is what I wanted to, this is what I want to do. I went on, continued to play football, went on to play college football, but at that point, I knew I wanted to be a bodybuilder, and that's how it all started.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Dad, one of the things, you know, that most regular mortals struggle with is juggling time, juggling, you know, different responsibilities that we have in our life, work, kids, you know, some sort of semblance of a personal life. Tell us about your workout routine and frequency and how you were able to juggle those things.
Okay. Well, I really didn't do anything serious with weight training, strength training. I did a little bit in high school, just what you typically do for sports teams. But as a junior in college, I had my professor of kinesiology, the study of movement. And the guy truly was ahead of his time. He had a strength training class that mandatory. I needed to go to this. He didn't have a perch system for technology, but he did video. He did videotape of all of the lifts that you would be doing in strength training. And even back then talked about the bar path and talked about, you know, making sure that your technique was right and your form was right. And he took a liking to me, I guess, because I was probably 20 pounds lighter than I am right now. And I could push a lot of weight. So he kind of used me as an example quite a bit. But he was a big influence on me. And in that class probably locked it in for me that this is something that I'm going to continue with the rest of my life. And that's, what are you, 20 years old when you're a junior in college? And his routine, now this is old school, his routine that he taught was a push, pull, and a lower body. So you do all the push exercises for your upper body on one day. The next day you would do the pull exercises. So the push would be everything you'd think about, the bench press, any pushing movement. A pull would be lat pull downs, those types of things, bent over rows or something like that. And then the lower body was lower body, anything with legs. That was leg press, that was squats, that was, you name it. And he taught that you would do each one of those twice a week. So ideally, you'd get 6 days in. And he was ahead of his time also. He said, well, the first one that you do that week is going to be heavy. Not a lot of reps, but you're going to build strength that way. And the second one is lighter weight for speed. So again, he really focused back then what we really work on now. Plyometrics was huge for him, doing a lot of the jumping movements and that type of thing. So
this guy knew his stuff.
Yeah, so he was ahead of his time. So that's really what got me on the road to doing this more seriously. And for years, I followed that routine: the push, pull, lower body. So that's. But you make a good point. I went to my granddaughter's graduation was earlier this week, and the superintendent of schools actually brought up a quote from Brian Dyson. I don't know if you've heard of this, but he basically talks about juggling 5 things of life. I'll try to remember them: family, friends, work, health, and spirit. And he says, if you think about those 5 things, all of us need to try to prioritize because life happens. It does. And you want to try to fit in these, you're juggling 5 balls at once, you want to try to fit it all in. So he says, now the work one, that could be a rubber ball. Because if that fails, it'll bounce back. So if something happens with work, that'll bounce back. But the others are glass, so they can either be scuffed or scratched or broken or whatever. So through life, you have to try to prioritize. Health is very, very important. We have to take care of ourselves first, making sure that we take care of our health. We're going to be there for our families. We're going to be there for our friends and that type of thing. So with that in mind, through a lifetime of doing this, there are going to be there were times that I missed. There were. I'm not going to sit here and tell you for 50 years I never missed a day working out. That's not possible, And I think that's a mindset all of us have to have is you are not perfect. You're going to miss time. But try your best to get back as soon as you possibly can. Because that's going to happen. And don't beat yourself up. But try to stay with it and try to get back to it as soon as you can. Because the benefits of this are lifelong. So
that's awesome. Mel, can you one of the things that you're famous for in our circle is your nutrition routine, and this just never changing machine nutrition routine. So can you go into that? Can you go into that routine for us a little bit and tell us how in the world you constantly eat the same stuff for the last decades?
I probably have the most boring diet nutrition regimen in the world ever created. People that know me, people see me, and they ask for nutritional advice all the time, and I always preface it by saying, I don't know you can do what I do if you want to do what I do, because it's pretty boring. There are other options, but this is what I do. My nutrition program for years has been pretty simple. I eat a lot of chicken breasts, a lot of fish, vegetables, a little bit of rice, a little bit of potatoes, carbs. I make sure I get green vegetables in there. Protein shakes, egg whites, oatmeal. Every once in a while, I'll have a steak. I had a steak last night. It was pretty good. But that's it. A normal day of eating for me is before the workout, I'll have a protein shake. That's it. I'll go and train. I'm usually training in the gym anywhere from 3 to 4 hours.
And what time do you start training?
I'm usually there by 4 a.m. So I'm up between 2:30 and 3 every morning. I hit the gym at 4, get started, and it's I've been averaging about 4 hours a day in there. So after the workout, I have another protein shake. Usually I have like a couple of bananas with it. A couple hours after that, I'll have a chicken breast with asparagus. And that's it for that meal. A couple of hours after that, I'll have egg whites and oatmeal. A couple hours after that, I'll have the same meal as I had before that, which was chicken breast and asparagus. And then a couple hours after that, I'll have maybe some salmon, again with asparagus, maybe a little bit of rice with that meal. And then after that, before I go to bed, I'll have another protein shake. I usually will wake up at least once in the nighttime. And at one time I wake up, I'll have another protein shake. And all of this is because, in part, it takes a lot of food and a lot of, in particular, protein to not only build the amount of muscle that I have, but just to maintain it. It's very difficult to get that all from real food all of the time. So it helps. The protein shakes help. Um, it helps a lot. When I'm in contest mode, um, I tend to lean more towards real food and not protein shakes or anything else. When I'm in off-season mode, I'll dial it back a little bit and I'll rely more on protein shakes um, and some other things. But that's kind of the standard average day for me when it comes to my diet. And I've been eating like this for years. Even if I'm not getting ready for a competition, like right now, I'm not getting ready for a competition, I will eat exactly what I just explained to you, Sunday through Friday, the exact same thing every single day. And on Saturday, I give myself whatever I want. I let myself eat whatever I want. And one thing I've noticed over the years is I used to get really excited about Saturdays. Say, I'm gonna eat this. I'm gonna eat a dozen donuts, and I'm gonna eat a whole chocolate cake, and I'm gonna tell her to cook peanut butter cookies for me. um, I can never eat a third of what I think I'm gonna eat once that day comes. You know, I'll eat something and it tastes delicious, and then I'll be full the rest of the day. And then I get pissed because I didn't get to eat what thought I wanted to eat. But it's, that's my day. I enjoy it. But the rule is I got to get right back on the horse the next day and get right back to my routine. So.
And you've been in and out of off season and on season, and it's amazing to hear that this is your off season diet.
Yeah. It's pretty strict for off season.
Yeah, I'd say so. You can keep it. How many years, how many decades have you followed a similar eating plan, do you think?
I would say at least 20.
20 years.
At least 20 years. Yeah. And I would say I probably have gotten more strict just in the last 5 to 10 years than I've ever been. And I think it's been for different reasons. Obviously, as you get older, you can't get away with the same stuff you used to be able to get away with when you're younger. Your metabolism starts to slow down. But also, my level of discipline has gotten to a point where I just feel like I can will myself to do whatever I want to do. And if I need to go 6 weeks straight eating nothing but tilapia and asparagus, I'll go 6 weeks straight and I can do it. Whereas before, when I was younger, I had discipline, but not at that level. It was much harder for me to do those things. So I've been able to develop that discipline over the years that just allows me to be more strict now with my diet. And plus I feel better. When I eat my junk food on Saturday, I feel like shit the next day. And the first thing I say is, I say the same thing. I was like, I don't see how people can eat like this every day. I couldn't do it, and I can't wait to get some good, healthy food in me. I can't wait to drink a lot of water and flush all the toxins out. And then I'm good. I usually don't start to crave things until maybe Thursday or Friday of the next week. And then I know Saturday's right around the corner.
So you guys are talking about, just a level of fitness, a level of dedication that most of us couldn't fathom attaining. How did and I can't call you Bob. How did that change for you from one day, hey, I'm enjoying working out, I'm enjoying, the benefits, I like getting stronger, I like outposing my son on the beach every single year. how did that turn into discipline? Because motivation, wanes. Motivation is one day to the next. Oh, today I'm motivated, and tomorrow I feel like crap and I don't want to do this. What is it on those days? How did that change over? What is it on those days where you go in and you're like, oh man, I don't feel like doing this today, that makes you still do it? How did that change? What turns it into discipline from motivation,
Right.
which is what we all normally use as motivation?
Well, when I was young, my mom said, you can do anything you put your mind to. Well, you're supposed to listen to your mom. And now I know she didn't come up with that. Been around for centuries. But when I was a kid, that was, mom said this can do. This can happen. So, and it's so funny. I have been able to go back to that. The power of the mind is incredible. I've been able to go back to that so many times during my lifetime, and I can give a lot of examples, not just in training, but I've always gone back to that. And the other thing is, I think setting a goal is really important, really important. And over the years, I have done those types of things. Maybe I've gone a few years. I mean, work has been very, very hectic. And I've gone a few years where I haven't actually done a 1 rep max in a while. And I can remember having age milestones. So I was nearing the age of 55. And I said to myself, I wonder if I still could have the strength to bench press 300 pounds at 55. So that became a goal of mine. So then as I'm approaching my 55th year, my birthday, then that helped fuel the commitment, the drive. And wow, I was able to do that. So then you go through those types of things when you, and I think setting a goal is really, really important, and trying your best to achieve that goal. It sounds so trite, it does, but honestly, that is what has really worked for me over the years. And then fast forward 10 years later, and I'm like, 65. Is it possible that I could maybe bench press 300 pounds again at 65? So again, that was a goal that I set out for myself, and wow, I was able to achieve that. So I think that those are just a couple of examples of what we have that power to do that. Now, still, you're going to have those things that'll the obstacles that'll get in your way, and life happens and that type of thing. But if that is your goal, then I have found a way to go after that, to achieve that. And like Melvin said, that discipline does become part of you. And then the other thing too is fighting father time. I'm going to fight those perceptions that are out there and look, there are facts here. When you reach 35, then you're going to lose 3 to 5% of your muscle mass every decade. So then add that up. Well, okay, that's a fact. I can certainly try to battle that. So you have to find your own internal motivation. I can't motivate anybody. Maybe we can set some examples that'll inspire people, but honestly, you have to decide yourself, and whatever that goal is. The power of strength training is phenomenal. You'll talk to a lot of people that say, "Oh, I need to lose weight. I've got to lose weight." And I always source, because I have a healthcare provider in the family, your mother. I'll always source the Mayo Clinic as you're looking for the types of things. And if you look at the Mayo Clinic and the benefits of strength training, they will list them. Increasing your bone density, increasing your lifespan, taking a good chunk out of the possibility of having heart disease, that type of thing. But it increases your metabolism as well and will help you maintain and manage your weight. It will. That's a fact. So, those types of things are drivers. But I think honestly, the power of the mind is incredible. And if you put your mind to it, you can achieve. To go back to what Mom said years ago.
All right. So, Melvin, similar question. You humbly touched upon earlier that you continued to play football in college, and you, um, you were a fullback for Michigan, transferred to UNLV. These are major schools and major positions. Do you feel like I know you touched on it with your nutrition. Do you feel like your motivation sort of started to change into discipline over time, or do you, when you were at top level football, you're talking Michigan fullback, were you as disciplined then as you are with your training now? Has this been just a lifelong trait of yours, or did it develop?
I think I've always been a tad bit more disciplined than the average person, but I do believe that it's been a natural progression as I've gotten older. I know there's been some valuable things that I've learned from playing organized sports, even all the way back to elementary, junior high, and on to high school and my college days, being taught the importance of teamwork and discipline and those type of things. And it's different because when you're playing an organized sport where you are a team, there's a team of people, and there are coaches. Coaches are telling you what you are supposed to do. Doesn't matter whether you're motivated to do it or not. You got to do it, you know. But they're telling you to do it. So I think I found myself going through that process of the coaches saying, this is what you have to do if you want to achieve these type of results. So you do it, like I said, whether you want to or not, you do it. But once you start to see yourself achieve the results, you see the benefits of being disciplined. So you take that to a sport like bodybuilding, where it's a little bit more of an individual sport, and you have to find a lot of internal motivation and self-drive. And so I think I took that, what I've learned from sports, in particular football and the discipline, and I was able to kind of internalize that and say, well, I've learned these lessons in discipline and what I can achieve from it. So I'm going to apply it to bodybuilding, and discipline in bodybuilding it's on a whole nother level. It can be pretty extreme, and that's everything from your weight training to your diet, how much sleep you get every night, how much water you're drinking. You have to be extremely disciplined because it's all going to affect how you look, So, yeah, I think overall, I've learned a lot. I did learn a lot from my years playing football and was able to translate that into bodybuilding. But it's been a natural progression. I think I've gotten stronger at it as I've gotten older.
All right, guys, if you're okay with it, I'm going to turn questions over to the audience. So in the audience today, we have, newer lifters, newer athletes, some, just being introduced to the barbell. We also have all-time record holders in powerlifting in the audience. I think there's also a national champion out there. So you're going to have questions from all different levels. So audience, when you guys ask a question, I'm going to repeat it just so it can go into the mic and into the podcast so everybody else can hear it. So does anybody have any questions for either one? You can direct your questions either way. All right. So the question was, aesthetic, strength, whatever your fitness goal is at the time, when you run into those plateaus, when you run into those, man, I'm putting in the work and I'm not getting the results, what do you do to overcome that? And either one of you can start.
Okay. Probably consult some people that I trust. And if I've reached a plateau, and I've done this for a few years, then I'd probably reach out to a coach, yourself, other people who've had experience in powerlifting, and just kind of explore, okay, what's happening here? I can't seem to reach what I'm trying to reach. Get their perspective. And then, I mean, there, as many years as I've done this, I continue to learn. I mean, and that is a true statement. I mean, just in recent years, recent months, I've experimented with a few changes in doing the deadlift, and I've seen improvements. So I think I would probably reach out to people who have done this, who have either coached or have done this for quite a while, and get their perspective. And try. Let's try it.
Awesome.
Again, similar to Bob's answer, I think it's important. Well, I can approach this a couple different ways. I do think it's important to recognize when something isn't working. At the same time, patience. You have to have patience, and you have to give it a chance to work. And sometimes, in this day and age that we're in now, a lot of people don't have the patience. It's immediate gratification. I have people that come up to me all the time. Well, I'm doing this, and this, and it's not working. Okay, how long have you been doing it? For 2 weeks. Get out of my face. No, but you have to give it time to work. You have to be patient. I also have people come up to me and say, you know what, I'm doing X, Y, and Z, and it's not working. And I say, okay, when you say you're doing X, Y, and Z, you're really doing this to the best of your ability. You're not skipping here. You're not missing here. Well, then you know what? Then I don't want to hear it. Unless you're doing it 100% of how you're supposed to do it, you can't really say it's not working. I think another component is exactly what Bob said is if you do give it the time and with your patience, and you reach a point where you say, you know what, I've been doing this for 6 weeks, nothing. This is not working. It's important to recognize that, as well as I think that's when it's important to reach out to someone that you may know that can kind of give you some advice, or give you a different direction to go into. I had a gentleman just a couple days ago come up to me at the gym, and he said, how do you get quads like that? And I said, lots of squats. And he said, man, I can't get my legs to grow. I said, what do you do for them? He said, well, I do squats. I said, tell me what your routine is like. He said, well, I'll do I think he said I slapped like 175 on there for 10 reps, and then 225 for 8, and then I'll go 315 for 3, and then I'll max out. And I said, okay. I said, how long have you been doing that particular? Oh man, maybe 10 years. Have you ever tried or thought about going lighter weight and doing higher reps? maybe. And he's like, you think? And I said, I've never done a 1 rep max in my life on anything. Very different from powerlifting, but I've had no interest in doing a 1 rep max because a 1 rep max is not conducive to bodybuilding. I'm not trying to necessarily be the strongest that I can be. I'm trying to build muscle. So sometimes the training has to be different. It's not always about how much weight you're using in bodybuilding. It's about the repetitions in combination with the weight. So all that just to say, that's just another example of, hey man, you just told me you've been doing this training this particular way for almost 10 years and you can't get your legs to grow. Hello, try something different. Yeah. And I said, I do reps of 30, 25, 20, 18, 15 when I do legs. And I said, I do that pretty consistently. And I go as heavy as I can, but it's not a super heavy amount of weight. But trust me, when you can just throw 100 pounds on the bar, and if I say do it 30 times, when your legs start burning at 15 and you got 15 more to go, yeah, it's going to kick your ass. So, again, just another example of just being able to recognize when something's not working, as well as be willing to try something.
I think that concept of total resistance comes into play a lot in bodybuilding. If you go out and, deadlift 500 pounds for 1 rep, or you deadlift 300 pounds for 10 reps. Well, now you've put 3,000 pounds of total resistance as opposed to 500 pounds. Mm-hmm. In that muscle building realm, I think it's a fantastic way to go. What other questions do we have from the audience? All right, so the question was, has the discipline in your particular field of fitness ever turned to obsession, ever affected your work or personal life, where you look at it and you kind of realize, wow, this is sort of changed over to the next level. And again, either one of you can start.
I'll start with this one. And the answer would be yes. I have experienced that, and I still experience. There are probably people that would look at me and say, "You're psychotic. What are you doing?" But for me, I'm very driven. I'm very self-motivated, and I'm very goal-oriented, like Bob spoke about earlier. And I know it can be, if not an obsession, it can be pretty close to the point of an obsession. And I don't know if that's just how I'm wired, but I know that's how I am. And there's been times throughout my life where it has, affected personal life, friends, family. My friends throughout the years, they've come to understand, at least the close friends, and know, oh, let's go out and do this. Don't even think about asking Melvin, because he's got to be in the bed by 8 p.m. He's going to be up by 3 a.m. He ain't going. So it's like they understand me and they're okay with it. And the same thing with my family, and the same thing with work. I have people that I've worked with for many, many years, and people fly out from our corporate office and, hey, I want to take everybody to dinner, and before they used to say, you want to go to dinner? Now they say, look, I know you're not going to go, but the offer is there because I'm not going to go, because they're going to dinner at 8 o'clock at night and I need to be at bed at 8 o'clock at night so that I can get up the train. One thing I've learned over the years, there has to be a balance. You have to have a balance. And I've struggled with that over the years, but I know as I've gotten older, I'm very cognizant of it, and I certainly strive to have more of that balance in my life so that it doesn't affect my family and friends in a negative.
Yeah, I can't say that that I have actually experienced that. Now, I can tell you if let's just use work as an example. If that has just been really bad and stressful and that type of thing, and maybe I've missed some, there is a feeling of guilt. Like, wow, I've missed this many days. I have got to get back in there. Um, but at the same time, I can tell you, I have used this as a stress reliever my entire life. Um, Bad run at work. I am throwing some weights around. Let's go. And it's really been a help. But so I guess there's been, if I've missed some time, there's been a feeling of, oh, I'm feeling bad about this. I've got to get back in there. So,
You know what? Let me add this too, though, because you just brought up a good point. Um, you know, I have used it as a stress reliever my entire life too. It's not just about I got to get to the gym and work out so that I can look a certain way. Um, I feel so much better once I work out mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. It's like that is my salvation for the day. When I get up at 3, I hit the gym at 4. When I walk out of the gym at 8, I feel like you can throw anything at me and I can take it. Bring it on. I'm ready for the world, you know. So when I don't get that, I'm not ready for the world. I feel a little off. And I'll give you an example of how ridiculous I could be at times. I remember, I don't know, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to work out and because of time. So I only had like, I don't know, 45 minutes. So I could either drive straight to work or I could go to the gym. What am I going to do? And, it's going to take me 15 minutes to get there. What am I going to do? I still chose to drive to the gym. And all I did was change clothes and get ready for work and go to work. Why? Why did I do that? There was obviously something in me saying, okay, I need to go to the gym. I need to try to stick to this same routine because this is going to make me prepared and ready to go. And that's what I did. People may look at that and say, you're a psycho. What the hell are you doing? And I get it. I totally understand it, but I'm just being honest and, just telling you guys how it's been for me over the years.
All right, I think we got time for one more. Does anybody else have one? Yeah. All right, so the question is, when you go off diet, when it comes to junk food, things like this, how does it affect your training routine? How does it affect your daily life? How does it affect your, reaching your goal overall?
well, I can tell you, junk food for me is like a treat, and I'll give myself that treat if I've earned it, so to speak. Over the years, a lot of people have said, wow, why do you work out so much? Because I love to eat. So that's kind of a treat for me. Um, but you're the nutrition expert here. So.
I agree. There's been many times where I've said part of why I work out is because I love to eat. I love to eat good food. People, it's funny because people have it so twisted. They're like, oh my God, you eat asparagus all day long. You must love asparagus. I hate asparagus. Absolutely. Yeah, I absolutely hate asparagus, but I eat it because it's one of the best green vegetables. It has diuretic properties, a component to it. So, and I've seen that it works very well for my body, but I absolutely hate it. I like pizza. I like hot dogs, French fries, peanut butter cookies, whatever she's gonna be cooking
I do
tomorrow,
too.
or bacon. I mean, that's what I like to eat. But as far as when you stray from your diet and you take in junk food, it can just have a really negative effect, not only physically but also mentally on your psyche. Um, you feel guilty, and it can also kind of be the beginning, or it can lead to just spiraling out of control. I mean, I can't tell you, you guys know, I'm sure, how many times you said, well, I'm just going to have this. And then this turns into, you know what, I'm just going to take the weekend and I'll start back Monday. And, that can just be an ongoing cycle. So.
All right. So to close it up with each of you, what advice can you give everyone listening, everyone here, me? What advice can you give to keep on the right track, stay in the right direction? What knowledge can you relay to close this out? When we all run into struggles.
Well, I would say that having a mindset that this is a marathon, not a sprint, can be helpful. I think what has benefited me is the consistency over a great number of years that has allowed me to build a base of strength that can be maintained or even improved. But it is not, don't feel like it is something, well, I can work out for a couple of weeks and lift these weights. That's not going to happen. So consider that this is a marathon and not a sprint. And then going back to what Mel said a few minutes ago, and that is trying your best to have a balance in life. This is a very, very important part of it. But trying your best to have a balance and keep those balls that you're juggling in the air and make health one of those priorities, your personal health one of those priorities.
Awesome. Melvin, what can you leave us with?
Consistency. I think that's the word that I use the most when people ask me for advice, is consistency. You're not going to accomplish anything without consistency. I think it's important, Bob touched on this earlier, to set goals for yourself. And don't be afraid. You don't always have to set these high, lofty goals for yourself that may or may not be attainable. It's okay to set a goal that you can reach. It's okay. You reach it, and then you build on it, and you continue to build on it. And that's kind of the approach that I've always taken, and it's always worked for me. Just baby steps. Sometimes you just need to take baby steps, but as long as you're moving in the right direction, it's okay. My whole life, I've had the mindset of, I either want to maintain or I want to progress, but I'm not going backwards. So set the goals, even if you know you can reach them, that's fine. And that's not just for your training, it's for your diet too. If you just say, sometimes people ask me for advice and I say, okay, they're like, where do I start? I'm going to cut all this out. I'm going to start eating healthy tomorrow. You drink soda? Yeah. Okay. So this week, just try to stop drinking soda. That's it? Yeah, that's it. Just try to do that, one step at a time. And I think you'll see, as you start to reach those goals, your motivation will become stronger, your mental will become stronger, and you'll have the inner drive to push yourself to continue to reach higher and higher goals. as you progress.
Gentlemen, Melvin, Alston, Bob Moore, thank you all. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for doing this with us. We're at Priority Health and Fitness right now. We're gonna have a workout now where our athletes can train per their programming under your watchful eye for a couple hours. And during that workout, if there were questions that anybody missed, feel free to bend their ear. They're here to relay knowledge. Anything that you guys want to ask them while you're training, feel free to do that. All right. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.